What's up, everybody? Kova back here again with another live stream. Today we have a special guest, Jeremy Hyler. But before we get into that, let me run some quick promo. You guys know this is my new channel, so don't forget to subscribe to this channel. This channel is going to be a live stream exclusive channel with a few recorded videos here and there. Also, go check out my website, Jeremy actually helped me build. So my website, you can go and check out my comics, some of my artwork. If you want to commission me or anything like that, you can go and check out some of the comics I have in my stock, all that good stuff. Also, you can go subscribe to my Patreon, which I don't push enough, but I'm going to start. On my Patreon, I post pretty frequently. I usually do my weekly pickups. I'll post full linked interviews that I used for other videos that I might have edited out from other videos, and things like that. Most of these posts are free for the most part. All you can do is just sign up as a member, and then you'll get all these posts for free. I do have some stuff that are behind the paywall, like my tutorials on how to build a YouTube channel. I'm currently working on a series of videos about how my process of making comics and things like that. So if you guys are interested, go subscribe to my Patreon. The paid membership is only $5. I have a $10 membership, but I think I might just get rid of that and just do the straight flat $5 membership. But yes, I'm about to bring Jeremy on, and we're gonna look at some of his comics. Yo, what's up, man?
Yo, what's up?
How's your day been going?
Not too bad. Busy day at work. Been juggling that stuff, and then school just started with the kids. So yeah, just handling all that stuff. And yeah, man, I'm ready to do some drawing tonight. I hadn't been able to do some in the last couple of days, so ready to jump back in.
Yeah, same. I haven't been able to draw as much as I wanted to either because I did the convention, and then I had got the funds for the Kickstarter that same weekend, so I was able to I put in the order for that on a Monday night, and I was up all night doing that, and yeah, that was a mission in itself. So I haven't been able to draw really this week either, or like this past just like Friday, like really draw. So yeah, so um today we're gonna look at your comics, one of the many you've produced in the last I don't know, like year. You've made so many comics, which I find extraordinary. There's like not many people who actually produce comics as fast as you. I think the only other person is like Brunson. He produces a lot of comics really fast. So yeah, so we're gonna look at your Godzilla Peace on Earth comic, which I find is like one of my favorites. I think behind the Ninja Turtle one, and your Batman stuff is really cool too. But I like this comic a lot because it's in the color. So what was the idea behind this comic?
So I just finished doing Batman Reign, and
Mm-hmm.
I was making that book. A lot of things were happening, right? In my personal life and stuff like that. My dad just had a stroke. Um, Kira Toriyama passed, Ed
Mm-hmm.
Piskor passed. So that book,
Yeah.
I feel the pain on that page. There's a lot of turmoil. So for me, looking back, I can look at back at it now and like the comic, but at the time, it was a struggle to get through that book. So
Yeah.
as soon as I finished that book, like at the end of May, I immediately went on vacation with my family, and I was like, I'm going to try to make something where I have no work to contend with. It's just family stuff during the day, and then nighttime I just make a book. So I try to make a
Mm-hmm.
book. In this book, I produced in 8 days.
Wow,
So for
that's
me,
crazy.
yeah. So for me, this was like a challenge to see like what am I able to do when I don't have the distractions of like a normal day job and anything else going on, and
Mm-hmm.
also coming off of another book and just pushing myself through it. So you can see some of that catharticism of like going through whatever I was going through the previous months. That's what kind of
Yeah.
unfolds on this page. But the idea I had for a while is like, what would Godzilla's life be like if there was nothing left? If
Mm-hmm.
the Earth has gone by maybe 1,000 or so years, maybe 10,000 years, and everything's already been decimated, and he's the last thing left. But except for wildlife and maybe whatever else is kind of taken over normal life, and I kind of gave him a consciousness of like his daily routines, or maybe him sleeping for like 1,000 years and waking up and seeing that nothing has changed, but he's in isolation and, without purpose. What does that look like? So you can
Yeah.
see like a little bit of me on the page of like, if I didn't have art, maybe that's how I would feel. Like you're waking up from a long slumber, and just trying to find yourself.
Yeah, I feel that. It's kind of like now that you say that, it kind of reminds me of like I Am Legend to a degree, kind of like but with Godzilla.
Yeah.
And also like the idea of you just being in isolation by yourself and what you do at that time. But if you were just by yourself, like in I Am Legend, Will Smith was like just walk around talking to mannequins, and the only other person that he had or person being he had to talk to was his dog, and
Hmm.
all that. So I think that's pretty interesting because I mean, if you think about it, Godzilla's name is God, for a reason. So he has like some sort of like there's a meaning behind it, like some sort of purpose behind who he was outside of his like enormous strength and everything like that. But man, that's crazy. You were able to do this in 8 days, because like it's not just like a black and white comic. You were also you colored it and stuff like that. Obviously, you simplified your color palette to like 3 or 4 colors with the
Hmm.
purples and the like the maroonish colors. So I mean,
Hmm.
this is a fantastic. I remember when you first posted it, and I was like, man, this guy is just killing it. Like you have a very good like you have your own voice when you make your comics and it comes up on the page, especially just like on your like the way you lay everything out, the way you set up your scenes, the way you have your pacing, I think is very like obvious. Like, oh, that's Jeremy. Like he knows what he's doing. Like even with this scene, right? This is like one of your like I think every single comic you put out that I've seen and read, you have like one page that's like gets the attention, So like this was like the Batman snow. There's a scene where Bruce is walking through the snow all bloodied up and stuff, right? And then this one is
Hmm.
like God save us, and it has Godzilla. So I think that's really awesome.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, this I call those like kind of like, they are splash pages, but when I'm putting a book together, I'm thinking about like what's the total like what I'm trying to tell. And
Mhm.
sometimes like in a digital side, it's a little bit more organic that way where I can have like say I want to make a 12-page story, but then it turns into 16 or 18 pages just cause the beats I want to sell, as a
Mhm.
editor and stuff like that, I'm looking at like what's the pace of this so I can add more here and there. Now, when I'm transferring that into regular traditional art, you have to be a little bit more thoughtful in it. But I can still do that since if I'm making my own personal comics, not working for like any of the big twos or anything like that, I don't have to worry about page count. So whatever I feel like. I can deem like, well, it'd be really good to have something more punchy and powerful here. So when I get a page like the God Save Us page, that was where I was like, hey, I need an additional page to actually make the page limit. But I think
Mhm.
this organically would tell the story that I want to more. So I adjust the text in between all that to line up to where I'm trying to gather those details. So
Yeah.
that's why, I get these, with the Batman stuff, it's all in silence. But with this one, I was like, I'm pushing myself with color because I wanted to see what I could do with color and also telling story from, an internal perspective of like this character, with Godzilla.
Yeah.
What does he believe? What does his beliefs are? People are crying out to him. Does he see those as cry of help, or does he see those as cries of fear? But for him, no matter what, it always ends with the same results with destruction.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely see that, and I feel that. I mean, I do the same thing with my stories when I make my comics. I have like a set goal of pages, but then I'll like each step it always changes. So I'll write my script, and then I'll do my thumbnails, and then from the script to the thumbnails, things might change, and from the thumbnails
Mhm.
to the pencils, things will change. I either might add a page, subtract a page, or even change it up, and then even from there to when I'm actually doing my inks and stuff, things would change a lot. And I think that is the power of doing your own story, and you have your own creative control of just like adding or subtracting. But for me, is like I have like a bad habit of making like super duper long comics. Like like I need to start figuring out how to confine myself to 24 pages. I feel like I'll be able to produce more because I'm always doing like size comics, like 32 pages, 40 pages, 56, like like
Mhm.
super crazy like page counts for no reason other than just because like I can and I just want to.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I feel what you're saying about that. Just like your own, like your feelings and what you're trying to do, and then the dialogue you added in here kind of give Godzilla this consciousness of like he's kind of like young or something like that, like simple in a way. But you can also
Yeah.
see his power, like, especially with like that last page where he's like blasting everything. Like he is this immense god, and then he is like, what I'm saying, he's still Godzilla. It's just now there's nobody there to um reinforce that with like the fear or like anything. He's just like him against nature at this point, you know?
Right. And when we're seeing that, those last shots where, he's looking towards the heavens or the sky or, the celestial stuff, he's like, maybe
Hmm.
there's something else out there just like him. And that's why he's making it as bright as possible so they can see his light. Because he doesn't
Yeah.
quite understand how stars are. Like for
Mhm.
him, he could be the last beings left. And, for like us, we don't know what's out there. Maybe even
Yeah.
possibly Godzilla doesn't even know. He is the ambivalentness of whatever he is. So that's kind of what I was doing with that. And it's like kind of like how us as artists, we're all kind of in this, in our heads when we're making stuff, and then we think about like, I hope someone else is out there doing the same thing I am right now at,
Hmm.
2 a.m. with my head down on a tablet or on the paper, grinding away at trying to create something for other people. So that's kind of where a lot of those story elements kind of come together. And with his childlike nature, I was, I look at my son, in this photo right here, me and him are
Hmm.
like, Godzilla, monsters, anything like that. He's really into the Gill Man right now.
Oh, wow.
He's just really into, and I'm watching him play with his toys. He's got a story in his head, and seeing that childlike nature of like how he thinks about how these creatures talk to one another and things like that. That's kind of where I was kind of integrating that into the story of like, how would Godzilla think? Obviously, I feel it'll be slightly primitive, but like intellectual at the same time,
Hmm.
because he's obviously smart enough to know, but he doesn't have the same like intellect like we would. And I'm studying this, and like even all the font choices, I found this font tool on my iPad, and that's my 5-year old. That's when he was 5. That's his handwriting. So I embedded his handwriting as the font to kind of get that organic, not perfect style of writing down, because I think it works perfectly for his dialogue boxes.
Hmm. Yeah, for
So
sure. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely kind of gives them like a different feel, with the tone. Whereas like the colors you use and choices you use kind of gives like this drained feeling of like there's nothing there, everything's like dry, it's kind of hot, everything just seems to be like very bleak, I guess, in a way,
yeah.
right? With like the purples, the magentas, all those colors that you're using, and then the
Yeah.
dialogue kind of adds like a different element of like, okay, well, everything kind of looks this way, but what he's saying and his perspective is definitely like has a, like I said earlier, kind of like an innocence to it, to
Hmm.
where it kind of like plays on what's going on in the panels and the page layouts. So I think it's just dope, man. I this comic is really really cool. I mean, a lot of your comics are really dope, and I think it's just interesting how you came up with this concept with this character. Where, I mean, most times when you see the iterations, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of Godzilla films. I've seen a few of them, but like most times, at least what I've gathered is that he is just like this inevitable
Hmm.
creature, right? Like nobody's gonna just take him down. Nobody's gonna stop him, no matter what monsters you throw at him. He is going to end up on top, 9 times out of 10. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I think it's interesting that you gave him that mindset of just like, you know, like the
I really
innocence and
appreciate
stuff
it.
like
Yeah, I
that.
wanted to do something different from, I grew up on the movies. I've probably seen all of them at this point, and
Well,
I think minus one just came out maybe what 6 months before I made this.
hmm.
So Godzilla was already in my mind anyway. So it was like, well, what's a fun story to do? And I've done Batman, I've done Splinter. I was like, well, let me do something that's monster related, something with
Hmm.
kaiju's, because that's fun. But still trying to do something personal, still trying to do something different with that medium. Because what naturally most people would do would probably be like a monster versus a monster. And I'm like, well, there's always something like when nothing's left, what is left, right? So it's like, and like, he's the largest creature in this planet, but he's still like, there's still some life left. But even to him, it's like, is it worth killing, or is it worth just letting them be? And
Yeah.
I even have those choices like, well, tomorrow maybe I'll eat them, or things like that. It's like he doesn't want to be destructive, he just happens to be destructive because is that in his nature?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, it's like, and even it's like, I could even take it like another step where it's like, well, if I do start killing these things, there's gonna be less things, less creatures, less beings around for me to interact with, or at
Right.
least, or even like see my power. You know what I'm saying? Like me blow up all these islands, or what all this other stuff. And like you said, he's calling out maybe to somebody else to come out to see him and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, it really does remind me of like an I Am Legend. Just like by myself, this big city. There's just deer and mannequins and my dog, and then these like the underground people, whatever. But so yeah, I think that's really a really cool like choice of like your storytelling and stuff like that. I mean, even like we can just go to your other comics. Like you have such a diverse you know uh portfolio of books that you made, and you did all these like within like like a year and a half.
Yeah,
So I think
I
that's
did all
interesting.
those books from January till November. So in that time span, I did all those books. Yeah.
That's sick, man. Like, and I mean, even some of these stories inspired me. Like, your the memoir you did for your grandfather. It
Hmm.
inspired me to do my basketball comic about like because I want to do something more slice of life. I was like, oh, Jeremy's kind of, you're setting this tone, and I was like, well, maybe I feel like I can do that too. I feel like I can. So this comic inspired me to do something like that, to like tell a story that's personal to me about like my times playing basketball, and where you're telling a story that's more heartfelt, more heartwarming, and something that a lot of people go through, in a real way. So I think this
Yeah,
comic is really beautiful as well.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I did. I grew up with my grandfather. He was very close to me. And then one day he just started slipping away, and it was a slow slip, like, a decade of watching him kind of fall apart. And it was just, what could they do besides try to prolong it? But it's like, we manifest this, dementia and Alzheimer's as as this disease, this creature that basically takes away everything who they are, their memories, their
Hmm.
language, everything. And like while I was working on this book, I knew my personal story I wanted to tell with it, but I still did research on like what's it like for a person with dementia.
Yeah.
So you'll see like in scenes like where I have them at the grocery store, basically like they start to see like words and letters not make sense anymore. So everything
Hmm.
starts to feel like that's supposed to be like Publix, but it could look like Scrabble to them,
Wow.
and it's like Campbell's soup doesn't look like that. Meat starts to change into other things. Like they start to see like a decoded version of language, and that's probably why they start to lose their ability to speak as well. Like my my grandfather's sister, now she went very fast when she got dementia as well. She got it after him, but passed away within like 6 months versus a decade like he did. But the last time I saw her was like at New Year's one year, and she couldn't even speak.
Oh man.
Like it was just babble. And like I remember talking to her maybe 3 months ago, and it was like perfectly normal. So it's like everyone has a different story to tell. And with this, I wanted to share it with the world. I put it on Reddit just to put it on the Alzheimer's research R rated one, and
Hmm.
I put it there, and I had doctors reach out to me. I had, people who've also gone through these experiences reach out to me saying like this is the same types of thing. So it's a universal story at the end of the day, even if it
Yeah, for
is
sure.
super personal to myself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it is a great story, and it's just like these are the type of comics that I really like. When I read somebody who just like outside of the fantastical stuff, when I see like comics like this where they're more personable to the creator, like when people do like memoirs or things like that. I always find those fascinating, interesting, and way more heartwarming and stuff like that because they are elements. Even if it's something that like I don't have, I've never had anybody in my family go through dementia, so I don't get that part, but I understand the part of like growing, getting older, right, and having a family member lose themselves and stuff like that, and then just like it also makes me take a peek into who you are. You know what I'm saying? As a writer, as an artist, and things like that. So I think it's just it's super dope, and like it really is like it shows another part of your writing, you know what I'm saying, of your storytelling ability to pivot in certain ways where I feel like, with comics, a lot of people think about, superheroes or things like that, the fantastical stuff, but like the real heartwarming, hard hitting, award winning stuff is like these type of stories, right? Like Blankets, for example, from what's his name? I have the book right here, but Craig Thompson. Like I love his stuff. All of his books I've read because he does give you that element of personable like stories, encounters, and stuff like that. Durf kind of does similar things, and they also give you like education with it and things like that, right? I mean, when I first read Blankets, I read that thing like all the way through, like because it was just so good. I was just like so enthralled with the idea of like what he was talking about when he was giving his own experiences. There's another comic that I read about the creator. It's like one of the banned books. It's about their experiences like being gay and kind of like figuring out their own personable, like, like their pronouns and how what it meant to be like that type of person, stuff like that. Oh man, I forgot. I did it and I wrote it on a video, but it's like one of the most banned books out there. But it's like one of the books that
Yeah.
everybody points out and like, oh, they're trying to make everybody, you know what I'm saying? Like one of those books, but it's like really, really good. And it really gave me like the perspective of like what it's like to be that type of person, right? To like not
Yeah.
understand your own sexuality, not understand the gender norms that you're supposed to confine into and things like that. It really opened my eyes because obviously I'm not that person. I don't know what that feels like. So when I was reading that person's experiences going through that, I was like, damn, that's really crazy because it's kind of like, sad. It's weird. I'm not weird. It's sad and it's interesting that like that happens to people and that
Mhm.
it's really seemed really like tough. You know what I'm saying? When I was reading, I was like, damn, that's crazy that person has to go through that they don't know how to feel about something that's supposed to be natural to everybody. You know what I'm saying? That,
Yeah.
so those are the type of like I like one day that's something I strive to do is like make a memoir about us in like my life in certain aspects of my life. But obviously I'm still like getting older. So I want to, once I get to like a good age, I'm like, all right, here's like, something like that. That's something that I feel like is interesting.
No, I totally understand that. Like, even with my current book that I'm working on, it's a lot of personal experiences that I'm pulling from, not just my own, but like from my wife's culture, things like that. With Virulent, I'm looking at it from a perspective of like people that have been marginalized, people that, like even with, like with Scrubs and stuff like yours, it's
Mhm.
like someone living in the shadow or not fulfilling the shoes that they're feel like they're meant to fill. Those types of roles also and how they play into other people's lives and also how like illnesses and things like that can really pull you from what your expectations are, like I was supposed to be this or time tells me I
Mhm.
have to do this or things like that. And what does that mean when it you know is that a real thing to live by, or if it is only so much time, are we able to fulfill those things? And it kind of comes with some personal perspective from me is like in the last few years, uh, I never thought I'd be making comics, like I never thought I'd be doing anything like that. And here I am, making an entire art book from basically the last couple years. And
Yeah.
I'll bring that up from my side real quick. But with this book, this I just made it, just got in my mail yesterday. I'm very excited about it. But it's a personal story. It's about me, as a kid. What I always wanted to do was make comics, but I was kind of you know told it was a bad decision to do. Like it's not something that you want to fulfill. I went to like an art program for like a summer session thing. I got like a scholarship from my art teacher in high school. She got me into this art program at the School of the Arts of North Carolina. And it was just 3 months, but it's like it was kind of an awakening for me. It's where I learned that I had a passion for filmmaking as well. But out of that passion came from deterrence of my art teacher, the drawing ones, tell me like, oh, comics is such a drab thing to want to do. Like, why would you want to do that? Why waste your energy on something on that medium? So this book is kind of a love. It's for me, it's a love letter to myself because I state in the first section I've never really had a sketchbook growing up, and I really was when I was putting it together. I was thinking about it's like all my art is scattered everywhere. All my other art is gone forever because it was taken from me or thrown away or just lost to the ether of time, right? So this is like the first time I would have a dedicated art sketchbook. And for people who are interested in art or thinking that art is behind them, I want to be like, no, here's what I did. I turned 40 in 2 days, and here's what I did in my time during like lockdown. I picked up an iPad, started watching a bunch of YouTube videos that got me inspired, saying like, man, maybe comics is something that I could entertain again. And you can see like what types of art I was doing on my iPad. Kind of like here's my grandfather, a portrait I did of him in more of a digital painted style. My wife's grandmother on this side. But you can see like where I started developing my style and things like that throughout this whole thing. And that's kind of what this book's about. I want to be able to showcase like even though I don't think I'm worthy of this book yet, but this book means a lot to me because it's an evolution of here's what I'm capable of doing in such a short amount of time. And then, like, you get to the back section, I showcase all the other pages that I did that year, of last year. I want to be able to show, like, here's the comics. If you want to see all the work, here's a year's worth of comic making looks like, if you grind hard at it. So, I try to break down what I was thinking in those moments, how I put these pages together, and I'm hoping people that are interested in art or wanted to get into comics, this might be a guidebook for them in some way, but also an inspirational look for people like, I know, maybe Kova, I know you're younger than me, but you probably didn't think you'd be doing this now in your age. So
Yeah, man, that is freaking fantastic, dude. That is actually awesome. I'm glad I got my copy. I'm ready to get it here.
Yeah,
but
this one's yours.
Oh, that's dope. That's crazy because, like, I do feel that. I mean, same thing, same story as you. Like, COVID, got back into drawing, been going since then, and then, I mean, I could do the same thing where I just think I have, like, in the last, like, 2 years, I've done, like, so many different comics. I've seen my art progress. I've gotten to that point of like you, where it's like I'm just going and going and going, and like, and it's crazy because I never thought again like you would get back into doing that, because making comics art was something I loved in middle school, and then I moved on to like other things, and then now that it came back to me, I'm so happy and grateful that I found that passion back in something that I really really love, because it is something that it drives me to every day, just like going to work and taking care of my family, making comics, doing this YouTube stuff is really like put my passion in something more positive and something that I can, hone into, and it has grown and grown, since like, meeting you, meeting Brian, all the other people in the group, like Devin and stuff like that inspire me to keep going, something that like, like the group that we're in is something that's super rare, what I'm saying? Like, people don't really get a chance to, meet those people, like be in those groups, find positive groups like that. And then like, we take it a step further. We actually got to meet in person, what I'm saying, Heroes Con. I actually got to meet Brian. I actually got to meet Vero, Deanna, and all these other people in actual person. It was like a real surreal experience where it's like, this isn't just for fun. This isn't just like a made up fantasy thing. This is real. Like, we're actually like, doing something, and it's really, really cool. And even from your perspective, because there's a lot of people I feel like they feel like they might have aged out of these passions that are like supposed to be like childish or like, pipe dreams, but right. You're sticking with it, and you've gained more and more of a, of a following and stuff like that.